the punchline.
Please rise.
Hi everyone, I just watched the verdict. I thought I was live. So I'm restarting it now. Anybody that's interested can watch it with me again. I am going to pause this and then hopefully some of you will want to stick around and we can watch together some court TV and chat away. I'm going to mute myself. For those of you who missed it, here comes Charlie and the reading of the verdict. And if you're just stopping in, like what you see, please hit the thumbs up. Maybe subscribe to my channel. I would appreciate that support. Thank you.
Jury comes in, remain seated. Everyone else, please rise. Everyone but the foreperson can be seated. Has the jury reached a unanimous verdict?
Yes, Your Honor.
If you please could hand the verdict form to the bailiff. The verdict form is in its proper order. Madam Clerk, please publish the verdict.
In the Circuit Court of the Second Judicial Circuit in and for Leon County, Florida, the State of Florida versus Charles Adelson, case number 2016 CF 3036B, verdict. Count 1. We, the jury, find as follows as to count 1 of the indictment, first-degree murder. The defendant is guilty of first-degree murder. Count 2. We, the jury, find as follows as to count 2 of the indictment, conspiracy to commit first-degree murder. The defendant is guilty of conspiracy to commit first-degree murder. Count 3. We, the jury, find as follows as to count 3 of the indictment, solicitation to commit first-degree murder. The defendant is guilty of solicitation to commit first-degree murder. So say we all this 6th day of November, 2023.
Does the defense wish for the court to poll the jurors?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. So we're
Juror
far
Moore,
behind.
was your verdict and the verdict of the jury as a whole just
I
announced?
want to talk about the verdict. I am
Juror Brazos, was your verdict and the verdict of the
I
jury as a whole just announced?
went through some stuff, so I'm off.
Juror Gardner, was your verdict and the verdict of the
Yeah.
jury as a whole just announced?
Yes.
Juror Strong, was your verdict and the verdict of the jury as a whole just announced?
Yes, sir.
Juror Kraft, was your verdict and the verdict of the jury as a whole just announced?
Yes, Your Honor.
Juror Milne, was your verdict and the verdict of the jury as a whole just announced?
Yes, sir.
Juror Hawley, was your verdict and the verdict of the jury as a whole just announced?
Yes, sir.
Juror Thorne, was your verdict and the verdict of the jury as a whole just announced?
Yes, sir.
Juror Brim, was your verdict and the verdict of the jury as a whole just announced?
Yes, sir.
Juror Williams, was your verdict and the verdict of the jury as a whole just announced?
Yes, sir.
Juror Douglas, was your verdict and the verdict of the jury as a whole just announced?
Yes, Your Honor.
Juror Platt, was your verdict and the verdict of the jury as a whole just announced?
Yes, Your Honor.
Members of the jury, I'm going to give you one last brief instruction, and from here you will be discharged from your service. On behalf of the parties, the lawyers, and the people of the state of Florida, I want to thank you for your time and consideration of this case. I'm also going to advise you of some special privileges that are enjoyed by jurors. No juror can be required to talk about the discussions that occurred in the jury room except by court order. For many centuries, our society has relied upon juries for consideration of difficult cases. We have recognized for hundreds of years that a jury's deliberations, discussions, and votes should remain a private affair for as long as they wish it. Therefore, the law gives you a unique privilege not to speak about the jury's work. The lawyers and their representatives are not permitted to initiate any communication with you concerning the trial. However, you may speak to the lawyers or anyone else about the trial if you desire. You also have the right to refuse to speak with anyone. A request may come from those who are simply curious or from those who might seek to find fault with this decision. It will be up to you to decide whether to preserve your privacy as a juror. We give you our sincere thanks for the work that you have performed over this 2-week trial. You are discharged. Have a wonderful evening.
So what do you think? He doesn't even look sad. I just can't understand this dude.
Everyone may be seated.
I can't fix it, buddy.
Mr. Adelson, you are going to be remanded pending sentencing at this time. Does the defense wish to have a pre-sentence investigation report prepared as to counts 2 and 3?
Yes, Your Honor.
Very well. The court will order that the pre-sentence investigation be prepared by the Department of Corrections. I believe it will take possibly a month. I'm not sure if it will take longer than that. From there, will the parties be prepared to move into sentencing?
Yes, Your Honor. May I have a moment to confer with the family?
If they wish to make any impact statements tonight,
Yes, sir.
go ahead.
Okay, everybody, I've got it fixed. As soon as I'm done here, we'll pop over and we can watch some of Michael Ayala on Court TV together.
Tracy, does it mind?
I hope they are, Sue. His mother and even Dad. I think Harvey has some possible crime here. I don't know if they can put him. Believe it or not, I'm sure there's a lot we
as
haven't.
you know, family members,
have traveled a great distance, so we're hoping Your Honor will permit them to appear and make those statements by Zoom whenever we're reconvening for sentencing.
That will be permitted. Anyone who wishes to provide testimony for the sentencing portion may do so over Zoom. I believe this does not implicate any right of confrontation unless the defense has something to raise concerning that matter.
No, Your Honor.
Very well. We are in recess at this point. Oh, yes. We are going to wait until the jurors have vacated the courthouse, and from there, everyone will be dismissed.
See you later, Charlie. Bye-bye.
Go ahead and set a case management date as a status. This will ensure that we have the PSI in place. That will be on December 12th at 2:30 in the afternoon.
Here, I love you.
If everything is prepared, we can go ahead and have the final disposition on that day as well.
He doesn't seem shocked, huh?
Yes, Your Honor.
Beautiful Julia Janae, working in the background. She's got Justice Red on. Let's see if Vinny comes on with his tie. I'm hoping Vinny does have his red tie on tonight. I want to watch it with you all. I'm homesick for a couple days. Mary, we're gonna watch it again. We'll wait and see if a few more people come in, and I'll play it for you all again. In fact, I may rewind it to that point and let you watch it. Just a moment. Let me see if I can rewind this here.
Side now, so it does not become an issue.
Yeah, here we are. Thanks for coming in, Mary. It did come in quick. I don't know if I forget the name on one of the posts at the top of the page in the group in closing arguments. I did write that. I thought it would be quick. I hope I can find that, but I didn't think there was much to debate here. What do you guys think? Looks like a solid 8 hours. So they did talk. Maybe someone had. Think you'll see them bringing in Charlie in a minute. You're right, Sue. You are so right. I can't believe this. I can't believe nobody showed up for him. In fact, they're in Italy. Rumor has it. And his mom and dad, they know. Mr. and Mrs. Markel. I think that beautiful blonde that's been there with him is Danny Markel's sister. I think her name is Shelley. I may be mistaken. Yeah, here it comes, Mary. You're welcome, hon. We'll see it over and over, I'm sure. But yeah, I think maybe I'll play it now, and then if we have a bunch coming in, we can do another one. But we will put on Court TV. Hopefully I don't get in trouble. We can watch together, and people will be able to see it that way. I know people have been struggling with their apps, so hopefully those people got it fixed. It's quick, so we won't be too far behind. Poor Charlie. Right. Exactly. Here comes Charlie. Wonder why they didn't unshackle him or uncuff him. Maybe they do. I guess maybe they don't do that. Maybe they don't uncuff you in case you try to run. People have. Caitlin Armstrong was running up until like 10 days ago. I'd like to follow that trial too, guys. Guys following or ladies, are you following Caitlin Armstrong? I think, in my own opinion, I do believe that Donna Adelson will be charged with something. I hope it's this, but I'll be quiet now so you can hear this, Mary. And thanks to anybody in here. I really appreciate it.
Jury comes in, remain seated. Everyone else, please rise. Everyone but the foreperson can be seated. Has the jury reached a unanimous verdict?
Yes, Your Honor.
If you please could hand the verdict form to the bailiff. The verdict form is in its proper order. Madam Clerk, please publish the verdict.
In the Circuit Court of the Second Judicial Circuit in and for Leon County, Florida, the State of Florida versus Charles Adelson, case number 2016 CF 3036B, verdict. Count 1. We, the jury, find as follows as to count 1 of the indictment, first-degree murder. The defendant is guilty of first-degree murder. Count 2. We, the jury, find as follows as to count 2 of the indictment, conspiracy to commit first-degree murder. The defendant is guilty of conspiracy to commit first-degree murder. Count 3. We, the jury, find as follows as to count 3 of the indictment, solicitation to commit first-degree murder. The defendant is guilty of solicitation to commit first-degree murder. So say we all this 6th day of November, 2023.
Does the defense wish for the court to poll the jurors?
Yes, Your Honor.
Juror Moore, was your verdict and the verdict of the jury as a whole just announced?
Yes.
Juror Brazos, was your verdict and the verdict of the jury as a whole just announced?
It was.
Juror Gardner, was your verdict and the verdict of the jury as a whole just announced?
Yes.
Juror Strong, was your verdict and the verdict of the jury as a whole just announced?
Yes, sir.
Juror Kraft, was your verdict and the verdict of the jury as a whole just announced?
Yes, Your Honor.
Juror Milne, was your verdict and the verdict of the jury as a whole just announced?
Yes, sir.
Juror Hawley, was your verdict and the verdict of the jury as a whole just announced?
Yes, sir.
Juror Thorne, was your verdict and the verdict of the jury as a whole just announced?
Yes, sir.
Juror Brim, was your verdict and the verdict of the jury as a whole just announced?
Yes, sir.
Juror Williams, was your verdict and the verdict of the jury as a whole just announced?
Yes, sir.
Juror Douglas, was your verdict and the verdict of the jury as a whole just announced?
Yes, Your Honor.
Juror Platt, was your verdict and the verdict of the jury as a whole just announced?
Yes, Your Honor.
Members of the jury, I'm going to give you one last brief instruction, and from here you will be discharged from your service. On behalf of the parties, the lawyers, and the people of the state of Florida, I want to thank you for your time and consideration of this case. I'm also going to advise you of some special privileges that are enjoyed by jurors. No juror can be required to talk about the discussions that occurred in the jury room, except by court order. For many centuries, our society has relied upon juries for consideration of difficult cases. we have recognized for hundreds of years that a jury's deliberations, discussions, and
important in a prosecution's case that you want to remind them what happened, that this is not about wiretaps, that this is not about these codes and text messages and was this extortion here or the Latin Kings there. This was about a professor, a dad who was shot and killed for no other reason than wanting to keep his sons near him. So I did get that indication during that moment inside the courtroom, but I'll tell you, there were moments where they seemed to be leaning in to the defense, and Daniel Rashbaum was really good. Was really good at drawing them in, and the way that he delivered his passionate style really seemed to keep them engaged. But ultimately, they looked at this evidence and found that there was sufficient, beyond a reasonable doubt, to find Charlie Adelson guilty as charged.
And I have to agree with you, the prosecution showing that picture, because as listening to this trial, it felt like it was all about the money. You kind of forget sometimes about the victim, which is what all of this is about. I must ask you two things. Number one, was everyone told stay close by and when there's a verdict, come right back in? Because it was very quick of there's a verdict, he's coming in, and now we're going to hear the verdict. So what were people like while they were waiting? Did you get an opportunity to see Charlie Adelson's defense attorney or the state as they were waiting for the verdict?
So what do y'all think?
Well, everyone sort of scattered once the deliberation started. Keep in mind that we had gone until about 1:30. Lunch has been around noon, so everyone was about an hour and a half away from the normal lunchtime. So there was really this scatter to go find food. The jurors had a lunch order that was being put in for them, and so we kind of knew the jury's not going to come back immediately. We imagined that the prosecutors went to their office, the defense attorneys, wherever they were, by the time they needed to come back for the verdict, the deputies were looking for them, so they may have been a little bit further away. But same with the Markell family. They seem to stay close. And the media. There are a lot of trial watchers, content creators, and journalists who have been following this trial from the very beginning. They fill up a media room that's right next to the courtroom, and that room was so packed, everyone was in the hallway waiting. So when that news came in, just rippled through the courtroom, we saw even officials in this building coming and saying they were ready to go inside. And that gave us an indicator that probably there's some group text for the officials in this courtroom or courthouse staff to know when there's a verdict, and they were ready to go inside of that courtroom.
Julie, I have to ask you, my thoughts after that verdict went right to Catherine Magbanua. We know she's been convicted, and she testified in this case, but interestingly, it seemed as though the state almost disowned her in their closing argument, saying, hey, we don't need her. We've got plenty of other evidence. I know you had an opportunity to speak with her attorney. What did she have to say?
Well, I agree with you, Michael, that there did seem to be this distancing the prosecution from one of their star witnesses on the stand, Catherine Magbanua, and the defense actually attacked the state for not recalling her in their rebuttal case. And I noticed some jurors writing that down because Rashbaum was emphasizing, why would she have not taken that get out of jail free card? And that's been a question on so many people's mind about why she wouldn't have taken the plea offer and the immunity. So we followed up with her attorneys. She had two attorneys, Chris DeCoste and Tara Kawas, who just were so passionate about her not being involved. And they even allowed the state to interview her before her trial. No questions asked. They said, ask her anything that you want, basically like a deposition, and she maintained her innocence. Now, I talked to attorney Kawas this morning. She said that Catherine Magbanua stuck to that story until the moment that the guilty verdict came in last year, September of 2022. And she said that after that guilty verdict was the first time that she revealed to her attorneys that she had a different story to tell, that something else really happened. So they, according to Attorney Kawas, were as blindsided as well. But she said there was immunity on the table, and the reason she didn't take it was she was protecting her children's father, Sigfredo Garcia.
Oof. So much in this trial, a lot of stuff. Tell us a little bit, because we know at the end the judge asked about a pre-sentencing investigation. They agreed to do that. But then the state's attorney did speak to the father of Dan Markel regarding an impact statement. If you could tell us about that and next steps as you understand.
Right. So I was curious as to whether sentencing would happen immediately, because there are family members who are here from out of the country. They're from Canada. They are here every day for this trial. Have been here for pre-trials and things of that nature. So I expected that the state may want to go ahead and move into the victim impact statement. I even saw Ruth Markel holding a piece of paper while she was seated there waiting for the verdict coming in. But the conversation the prosecution had right there after the verdict in open court seemed to be that they weren't quite ready to give those victim impact statements. Now, we know he was found guilty of first-degree murder, so it's automatic in Florida that he's going to get life in prison without the possibility of parole. The same thing that Sigfredo Garcia and Catherine McBanawa are serving right now. But that is the opportunity, a sentencing, for the victim's family to share everything that they want. And think about it, this is such a different time for them. It's not just these people that they don't know, Catherine McBanawa, Sigfredo Garcia. This is their opportunity to speak